My name is Donal Daly. I work in the Office of Environmental Assessment in the Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay, Donal, can you tell us what is the Water Framework Directive?
The Water Framework Directive is the main policy instrument that the European Commission have brought in to manage water in Europe. It's, as its name suggests, a framework, which means that it encompasses a lot of other directives, such as the Nitrates Directive. And what's of interest about it is that it gives ecosystems a legal entitlement to water, both in terms of quality and quantity. Water quality in Ireland is good relative to most other European countries. At the same time, there are some problems. Some of our groundwaters are polluted with phosphates, bacteria. Some of our rivers, again, are less than good status, and similarly with our lakes and estuaries. Overall good, but because of the presence of particularly of phosphate in the water, it's caused some problems. Agriculture will be the biggest threat, but also wastewater treatment plants. There are the two of them. Of the two, agriculture will contribute slightly more nutrients to water than wastewater treatment plants. There's a few different ones. Point sources, for instance, dirty farmyards would be one. Now, they're ones that's a source that can be dealt with generally. The other source is it's what's called diffuse pollution. In other words, it's nutrients coming from grasslands and from tillage. Phosphates in water is one of the main causes of eutrophication or pollution of the water. And the issue arises because it takes very little phosphate to cause a problem. Just 1 kilogram of phosphorus as phosphate would pollute 29 million litres of water, or 6.4 million gallons of water. So in a lake such as this, lovely lake such as that, it doesn't take a lot to actually cause a problem. Achieving food harvest 2020 is going to be a challenge from an environmental perspective, because it's going to mean some increased usage of nutrients, of nitrogen and phosphorus. But it's absolutely essential that in increasing the amount used, that it doesn't mean an increased loss to water. And that means a lot careful farming practices. Teagasc are undertaking research at the moment that will come up with means, we hope, of ensuring that as little as possible of that increased nutrient use will actually go from the soils into water. So the key is for farmers, first of all, to be aware that they are causing in some instances problems, that they have the potential to cause problems, and then to make sure in their practices that they do things to a very high standard with the objective of reducing and minimising the loss of phosphate and nitrate to water. The first step is to make sure the farmyard itself that there's no soil water getting into water. That means tidying up the farmyard, collecting soil water and recycling the nutrients in the land. There are in some areas things the farmers can do, but it'll be in particular areas. You can have riparian zones, that's alongside lakes or alongside rivers, letting it become natural, not using it for farming activities. And those zones are able to take up the nutrients and stop them going into the river. There's also, you might in some areas need to have increased the buffer zones. In other words, you don't spread slurry or fertiliser in those areas, and runoff from the surrounding areas, the nutrients are collected in those areas and don't go into the water. So there are two means by which farmers could reduce the loss of nutrients. In summary, we have relatively good water quality in Ireland. At the same time, there are some issues that need to be resolved. We mustn't let matters get worse, and there are some water bodies where we have to improve the quality. A key issue in achieving this will be for farmers themselves to realise that they can do a lot to actually achieve good quality and prevent pollution from occurring. And that's where Teagasc advisors, for instance, have a major role in talking to farmers and letting farmers know what the situation is with regard to the nutrients on the land and how they can prevent them getting into water. The EPA will continue to monitor the water to see whether things are improving or getting worse. And what we want to see is that in a lot of areas things get no worse, and in some areas the water quality improves.